I still remember the moment my heart cracked, not loudly, not suddenly, not in some dramatic burst that shakes the whole world at once, but quietly, almost politely. It was the kind of break that feels like a thin thread inside you has finally snapped after being pulled, stretched, and strained for far too long. A break so soft that if you weren't paying attention, you might think it was nothing, just a breath, just a sigh. But I felt it. I felt that tiny, sharp shift that told me something important inside me had just changed forever. It happened on an ordinary evening, a quiet one, the kind that usually brings peace at the end of a long day. I had just settled into my chair after cleaning the kitchen, the last of the dishes still drying on the rack. The house smelled faintly of lemon soap and warm lights glowed softly in the hallway. Everything felt calm, peaceful, safe. I made myself a cup of tea, chamomile, my usual, and sat down, expecting nothing more than a few minutes of rest. Then my phone buzzed, a small, harmless sound, a sound I'd heard thousands of times before, sound that had never hurt me until that moment. I picked it up without thinking, expecting some silly forwarded joke from a friend, or a reminder about a doctor's appointment, or maybe even a message from my son asking if he could stop by this week. But instead, the screen opened to a cluster of bright, colorful photos, pastel pinks, soft blues, delicate creams, and gold ribbons shimmering like sunlight. There were balloons floating in the background, arranged in perfect arches, tables covered in tiny wrapped gifts, a cake decorated with little baby shoes on top. And right in the middle of all of it, my daughter Lord, she was glowing, her smile stretched wide, bright and happy, her hands gently resting on her belly. She looked beautiful, radiant, held by the warmth of people cheering her on. Women stood around her, laughing, clapping, hugging her, handing her gifts wrapped in sparkly paper. Everyone looked joyful, excited, united. A perfect little celebration. A perfect little celebration that I wasn't part of. Everyone looked so happy, everyone except me. Because I wasn't there, I wasn't invited. My mind didn't process it right away. It was like my eyes needed a moment to catch up with what they were seeing, and my heart, oh my heart, it needed even longer. I stared at those photos, blinking slowly, as if somehow the truth might rearrange itself if I just looked hard enough, as if maybe my invitation got lost. As if maybe someone forgot to tell me. Maybe it was an oversight, a mistake, a mix-up, something that could still make sense. Then I saw the caption, celebrating with family only, family only. Those words hit me like a cold wave pouring straight into my chest. My fingers tightened around the phone, but I didn't drop it. My breath caught in my throat, but I didn't gasp. I just stared, still and silent, as those two simple words echoed in my mind like a distant bell. Family only. Family only. Family only. First, I desperately, pathetically, maybe tried to offer my heart some comfort. Maybe they forgot to add me to the guest list. Maybe the text didn't go through. Maybe the invitation got lost in the digital world somewhere. Maybe. But then my eyes drifted to another picture, a clearer one, a closer one, front and center, standing tall and proud, holding a giant gift basket, was her mother, smiling widely, wearing a shiny sash around her shoulders that read, Grandma of the Year. I don't know why that sash cut so deep. After all, a sash is just a strip of fabric, a silly party decoration. But in that moment, it felt like a door shutting in my face. A door I had been knocking on for months, gently, lovingly, patiently hoping someone would open it. Instead, I was left outside, staring in from a window. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't overlooked. I wasn't mistakenly excluded. I was deliberately left out. My presence wasn't wanted. My role wasn't acknowledged. My love wasn't needed. The realization didn't strike like lightning. It didn't explode. It didn't rage. No. It came quietly, like a soft, slow tide, washing over me, cooling everything inside. And as it washed over me, I felt something inside my chest, something warm and hopeful begin to dim. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. I didn't yell or curse or slam anything. Instead, I sat there, completely still, staring at the screen, feeling my heart fold inward, gently, like a note being closed and tucked away in a drawer no one opens anymore. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, it was just sad, deeply, painfully sad. Because I had spent $12,000 preparing for that baby. Not for show, not for praise, not to compete with anyone, but because I genuinely believed I was going to be part of that baby's world. I bought nursery furniture, a crib so beautiful it looked like something out of a storybook. I bought clothes, tiny ones, soft ones, imagining little toes and little fingers filling them one day. I stocked up diapers and wipes, enough for months. I purchased strollers and blankets and toys. I even opened a trust fund, something my own parents never had the means to do for my children. I sewed handmade blankets, hours and hours of stitching love into every thread. I wrote little letters to the grandchild I hadn't met yet, letters I thought they might read someday and feel how much I loved them before they even took their first breath. Every single thing I did came from a place of hope, excitement, tenderness. But looking at those pictures, at that caption, at that sash, I felt like a stranger gazing into someone else's family, like I didn't belong, like I had built a future in my mind that never included me in theirs. The house around me felt suddenly colder, quieter. My tea had gone lukewarm, untouched. My heart felt heavier with every passing second on. And then instead of collapsing, instead of breaking down, instead of letting myself drown in hurt, I felt a strange, unexpected calm wash over me, a calmness born from clarity. I smiled a small smile, a tired smile, a smile that understood, finally, painfully, truthfully, and in a soft whisper, meant only for myself and no one else. I said, "All right, I understand." Those 4 words didn't come from anger. They came from acceptance, from the slow realization that sometimes, no matter how much love you give, no matter how hard you try, no matter how willing you are to show up, some people will still choose to keep you out. And what I did next, what I decided in that quiet moment, changed everything. From the moment my son announced they were expecting, something inside me shifted. Something soft and bright and warm bloomed in my chest, the kind of warmth that spreads slowly through you like sunlight filtering through a window on a winter morning. It wasn't just happiness. It was something deeper, something tender that I had never quite felt before. It was the feeling of knowing that life was expanding, that love was growing, that a new little heartbeat was going to enter our world. I remember the way he said it too, almost shyly, like he was nervous and excited all at once. We're having a baby." Those words wrapped around me like a gentle embrace. For a second, I could see a small flash of him as a child again, the boy who once held my hand crossing the street, the boy who used to climb into my lap when he was scared of thunderstorms, the boy who would run to me after school with new drawings and silly stories. And now he was going to be a father. My little boy was becoming someone's dad. That alone filled me with so much emotion that I felt tears rise without permission. I held them back, smiling, nodding, touching his cheek the way I used to when he was tiny. "I'm so happy for you," I told him, and I meant it. Every single cell in my body meant it. From that day forward, my mind began creating little worlds of its own, small gentle dreams stitched from hope and imagination. I pictured rocking the baby to sleep in my arms, feeling the weight of a new life resting against my chest. I imagined the soft smell of newborn skin, that sweet, powdery scent that lingers on your clothes. I imagined being there for their first steps, cheering them on as they toddled across the living room floor. I pictured holidays where the house would once again be filled with laughter and excitement. Christmas mornings where small hands tore open wrapping paper, birthdays with candles and frosting-smeared smiles, and Sunday visits where I'd make pancakes shaped like animals, just like I did for my son when he was little. All the small things, the ordinary things, those were the moments I dreamed of, because that's what makes a family feel whole. Those little threads of everyday love, woven together over time, creating something warm and lasting. I remember the day my daughter Yinla sent me a link to her Pinterest nursery board. It wasn't a big message, just a short line and a link. But to me, that tiny gesture felt like an invitation. Like she was opening a door and letting me peek into her world, letting me share in her excitement. She never said it outright, but the way she showed me the colors she liked, the furniture she was considering, the type of theme she wanted. It all made me believe she wanted me involved. It made me believe I was going to be part of this baby's story. And because I was so eager, so ready, so full of love, I didn't quite know where to put. I went all in. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think twice. I just started planning, buying, preparing, imagining, hoping. I ordered the crib. They said they loved the one they had added to their Pinterest board with a little heart next to it. It was expensive, almost $4,000, but it didn't matter to me. I wanted their baby to have the best. I ordered the stroller they casually mentioned once, not even in a big way, just in passing. They said, "Oh, this stroller looks nice," and that was enough for me. I bought it without a second thought. Then came the designer newborn clothes, the ones so soft they felt like clouds between my fingers. I stocked up on diapers, enough for an entire year, because I remembered how overwhelming those early months could be for new parents. I bought a rocking chair for the nursery, imagining myself sitting in it one day, humming old lullabies. I bought a bassinet, imagining it beside their bed, cradling their baby gently through the night. I bought a bookshelf and filled it with childhood classics, the same stories I used to read to my son. Stories that had shaped his imagination and filled our nights with wonder. I wasn't trying to show off. I wasn't trying to outdo anyone. I wasn't trying to take control. I just loved the idea of becoming a grandma. Maybe a little too much. Maybe my heart got ahead of reality. Maybe I was dreaming too hard. Every time I bought something, I imagined their faces lighting up. I pictured my daughter-in-law smiling at me warmly, saying, "Thank you, Mom. You didn't have to do all this, but it means so much." I imagined my son giving me that grateful look he always used to give when I helped him with big moments in his life. I imagined that sense of belonging, of being included, of feeling like part of their future. But that moment never came. Not once. Instead, my daughter-in-law began finding small ways to keep me at a distance. Nothing big at first, just little things. A short text response, always brief, always stiff, lacking warmth. A cold tone in her voice when I called to check in. A polite smile whenever we saw each other. But it was a smile that never reached her eyes, never carried the softness that real appreciation holds. And always, 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 there was the subtle reminder that her mother would handle things. Her mother was choosing the decor, her mother was making the plans, her mother was helping with the registry, her mother was setting up the nursery, her mother knew what she wanted, her mother understood her better, her mother was the person she trusted most. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself it was normal. Some women naturally lean toward their own mothers during pregnancy, some daughter-in-laws just need time to warm up, some relationships grow slowly. I told myself these things again and again because I wanted to believe it wasn't personal. I wanted to believe she didn't actually dislike me. I wanted to believe that eventually, with love and patience, things would change. So I kept trying. I kept reaching out gently. I kept offering help, keeping checking in, kept sending little messages of support, kept showing up, because I believed love would eventually be enough. Because I believed I would be accepted, because I believed family always finds a way, even when it stumbles at the start. But love can only fill so many gaps before reality begins to seep through. And as much as I ignored the signs, as much as I tried to see the best, something inside me sensed that a truth was waning, a truth I wasn't ready to face yet. I didn't know at the time that the baby shower, the celebration I wasn't invited to, the moment her mother wore that sash would be the thing that shattered every illusion I had left. I didn't know the distance I felt growing quietly between us would soon become something impossible to overlook. I didn't know that everything I built, everything I hoped for, everything I poured my heart into, was already being pushed away. Behind closed doors, I wasn't allowed to enter. I didn't know the baby shower would break the last piece of hope I had been clinging to. But it did. And in the gentlest, saddest way possible, it showed me exactly where I stood. I realize now that the first warning didn't come on the day everything shattered, it came quietly. Months earlier, in small moments I brushed aside because I wanted peace more than I wanted to admit the truth. One afternoon, while we were sitting at the dining table sipping tea, my daughter Lakajari mentioned she was planning a small shower. I felt my heart skip a little with excitement, and I asked gently, Let me know the date so I can be there, expecting a warm smile, some share of joy, a small spark of family unity. Mistechi smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes, a smile that felt polite, forced, even protective. Oh, we'll see. It's not finalized yet, she said, and I tried to ignore the heaviness in her voice. Later, when I offered to help with decorations, wanting to feel included, wanting to be part of my grandchild's celebration, she once again brushed it off with an airy, "Oh, my mom has that part covered." The third time, when I suggested hosting the shower at my home because I knew venues were expensive and I wanted to support them however I could, she didn't even pause before saying, "Oh, my mom already booked a venue," as if every door I opened she had already closed, locked, and handed the key to someone else. Every offer I made, every attempt to be involved, every small gesture from my heart was met with the same sentence, spoken so often it began to echo inside me. "My mom can handle it." At first, I told myself I was imagining the distance. I told myself she was hormonal, stressed, overwhelmed. I told myself I was being sensitive, too emotional, too hopeful. And every time my doubts grew loud enough to trouble me, my son repeated the same reassuring lines. Everything was fine. She was just busy. It was just stress. I was over. He would place a hand on my shoulder, kiss my forehead, and say, "Mom, you're reading too much into things." And because I wanted to believe him, because a mother always wants to believe her child, I pushed the little warning signs deep down inside me. Still, no matter how hard I tried to silence it, something kept whispering quietly at the back of my mind. A voice I didn't want to hear. "You are being pushed out. You are being replaced. You are slowly becoming a guest in your own family." But I didn't want to accept that. So I stayed the kind mother, the hopeful grandmother too. I kept buying gifts for the baby, tiny socks, blankets, picture books, the softest little onesies I could find. I kept sending messages to check on her health, asking if she needed anything, reminding her I was here, always here. I showed up for every appointment they invited me to, even when it was last minute, even when I had to cancel things of my own. I told myself, this is what family does, this is what love does, this is what mothers do for their children. And then, one quiet afternoon, everything shifted. I didn't know the invitations had gone out. I didn't know the date had been finalized. I didn't know her mother had invited everyone she wanted. I didn't know my own family members, my own nieces and cousins, had received invitations, and simply assumed I had to. No one thought to ask me, and I don't blame them. They assumed I was a part of the celebration. Everyone received theirs, everyone, except me. And I didn't find out from a phone call, or a conversation, or even a mistake someone corrected. No, I found out when the photos appeared online, smiling faces, decorations I had offered to help with, games I had expected to see, gifts piled high on tables, and my son standing there in the center of it all, looking happy, looking proud, looking like a man who had chosen a new family to stand beside him while his own mother watched from the outside. The whole world knew before I did. And in that moment, staring at those bright, cheerful pictures, something inside me cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a slow, painful way that only a mother's heart can break. I wasn't part of their celebration. I wasn't included in their joy. I wasn't invited to my own grandchild's shower. And the worst part was realizing that somewhere along the way, they had decided I didn't matter enough to notice I was missing. When I saw the baby shower photos, the ones boldly labeled family only, the ones filled with faces I recognized laughing and posing under balloons and banners, the ones where my daughter-in-law stood proudly beside her own mother, while my son smiled as if he had no idea who was missing, something inside me didn't explode the way people expect heartbreak to happen. It didn't shatter loudly or break open like a storm. Instead, something inside me quietly, almost silently, rewrote itself. Not in anger, because anger burns too hot for what I felt. Not in bitterness, because bitterness is heavy and sharp. And what settled inside me wasn't sharp at all. It was soft, steady, clear, a clarity I had avoided for months, finally sat down beside me and whispered, "You were never meant to be part of this." I stood there for a long time staring at those photos, watching the celebration unfold on a a celebration that had space for everyone except the woman who had raised the father of that child. And then, without a word, without a tear, without even feeling the usual ache in my chest, I walked into the nursery room I had built in my home. The room I had poured my heart into. The room where I had imagined rocking my grandchild, whispering stories, humming lullabies, watching them grow. Every piece of furniture was polished, every baby outfit folded neatly, every blanket washed in soft detergent, every stuffed animal arranged with care. It was a little sanctuary of hope, a place built entirely out of love, my love. A grandmother's love that asked for nothing in return. I stood in the middle of that room and let my eyes travel over every detail I had lovingly chosen. Every corner I had prepared like someone preparing a small gift for life itself. And in the quiet of that room, in the softness of a dream I had built, I whispered to myself, "This isn't for me. This wasn't meant for me." And that truth, simple, calm, honest, felt like a deep breath I had been holding for far too long. Then, almost ritualistically, almost peacefully, I began to undo it all. Not dramatically, not with trembling hands or angry movements, but gently, with the same care I used when I first put the room together. I folded the outfits and placed them back in their bags. I wiped down the crib one last time, my hands moving slowly over the smooth wood, acknowledging all the hope I had once placed there. I dismantled the shelves, packed the toys, took down the tiny curtains I had chosen because they reminded me of sunshine. I returned everything: the crib, the stroller, the shelves, the clothes, the decorations, every single item, down to the smallest pair of socks. And when the stores asked if I wanted store credit, I shook my head politely. No, I asked for cash. I wanted nothing tying me to plans that had never included me. Then I went to the bank quietly, without telling anyone, and I closed the trust fund I had opened for the baby. A trust fund I had been contributing to for months, imagining birthdays, school fees, future dreams. I withdrew every penny and returned it to my account, not out of spite, but because I realized something profound. Love should never be forced, and neither should generosity. Every loving plan I had made for that baby, every future I had imagined, every intention I had nurtured, I took it back. Not out of revenge, not out of cruelty, but out of the simple understanding that I could not keep offering pieces of myself to people who did not see me as part of their world. And then, after everything was settled, after the nursery was empty and the house felt strangely quiet, I sat at my dining table and wrote a small, polite card. No anger, no accusations, no emotional essays or disparate questions. Just a single line written in calm, steady handwriting. Congratulations to the grandma of the year. I placed the card in an envelope, sealed it, and mailed it directly to my daughter-in-law. No signature, no explanation, no follow-up message, just silence, the same silence they had given me. Days later, my son called, his voice tight, confused, angry, and hurt in ways he didn't fully understand. He asked why I returned everything, why I closed the trust, why I sent that card, and I told him gently not to wound him, not to punish him, but because I owed myself honesty at last. I only gave your wife what she clearly wanted, a family without me, and that was the day something in me shifted forever. That was the day I stopped trying to earn a place in the space where I wasn't welcome. That was the day I chose myself, not out of pride, but out of peace. That was the day I understood that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stop knocking on a closed door and simply walk away. In the months that followed, something unexpected began to unfold in my life, not in a dramatic or sudden way, but slowly, gently, like the quiet settling of dust after a storm. My house grew quieter, yes, but strangely, my heart grew lighter. With every passing day, it was as if removing myself from a place where I was never welcomed had opened a window that allowed fresh air to breathe through my soul. I stopped waiting for calls that never came, stopped staring at my phone like it carried a pulse of hope inside it, stopped checking social media in the desperate, painful habit of searching for glimpses of moments I wasn't invited to. I stopped rehearsing imaginary conversations in my head where they apologized, or explained, or even acknowledged the hurt they caused. And most importantly, I stopped pretending I wasn't hurt because admitting the wound was the very thing that began to heal it. In that new silence, in that new emptiness, I slowly began to rebuild a life where I didn't feel like an outsider standing at the threshold of someone else's home. I began spending more time with friends, many of them grandmothers themselves, women who understood the ache of distance and the joy of closeness. Women who had weathered their own storms, who carried their own stories of disappointment, love, and resilience. They started bringing their grandchildren over sometimes, filling my home with tiny feet and loud giggles, hands sticky with candy, little hearts eager for stories, and I spoiled them with the same love I had once saved for my own grandchild, the love that had nowhere to go but still insisted on existing. I baked cookies the way my mother taught me, letting the scent of vanilla and butter drift through the house like a warm memory. I read stories with voices and expressions that made the children laugh so hard their shoulders shook. I gave them small surprises, stickers, books, little plush toys, nothing extravagant, just tokens of care. I listened to their laughter echo against the walls of my home, bouncing into the corners that had once held sadness, and I watched as those empty spaces slowly filled with something new, something healing, something hopeful, something soft, enough to settle inside me without breaking anything further. And in those moments, surrounded by children who accepted my affection without question, I realized something profoundly simple yet profoundly true. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes the family is built from the people who choose you, the people who see your love, receive your love, and return it freely. Sometimes family is simply where your heart can breathe. As for the baby, I once dreamed of holding the one I imagined rocking to sleep, the one I pictured smiling up at me with innocent eyes. I still wish them well, more than anyone will ever know. I hope they grow up surrounded by gentleness, surrounded by kindness, surrounded by people who teach them compassion, not exclusion. I hope they never feel the sting of being left out of their own family, never learn the sharp ache of being unwanted. I pray that somewhere, somehow, the love I once prepared for them transforms into something good in their life, even if they never know it came from me. But what I no longer do, what I no longer torture myself with, is waiting for the day I'll be part of their life. I no longer sit by the window imagining a knock on the door. No longer fantasize about reconciliation that would require me to shrink myself to fit into their world. I no longer hold my breath hoping things will change, because I have learned, through quiet heartbreak and gentle rebuilding, that peace sometimes comes not from fixing what is broken, but from releasing what was never meant for you in the first place. And so, I am at peace, truly, genuinely, softly at peace. My story doesn't end with bitterness or resentment. It ends with a truth that is tender, calm, and healing. When someone shows you that you are not part of their family, believe them not with anger, but with acceptance, and then go build a life where you are wanted, where your love isn't taken for granted, where your presence isn't treated like an inconvenience. And that is exactly what I did. I chose peace over pain. And for the first time in a very long time, I feel free.